The United States is the dominant world power, by far the largest economy and the most powerful military. These are essential to the defense of our principles and to the protection of the American people. But the real influence of the United States in world affairs comes not only from military and economic strength, but rather from our ideals. American ideals set forth in the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution, in particular, the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. These principles are not easily summarized, but surely they include the sovereignty of the people, the rule of law applied equally to all Americans, individual freedom, our highest value, opportunity for every American. These principles and ideals have enabled us to grow from a small colony clinging to the Atlantic seaboard to by far the most powerful nation on earth. Every American should not ever forget that the United States was a great nation long before it was a great military or economic power, and it was because of our principles. The challenge of democracy is difficult. As Winston Churchill said, it's the worst possible form of government, except for everything else human beings have tried. Democracy is demanding on its leaders and on all citizens. It reconciles what I call the two pillars of democracy in an ongoing struggle. The first is the right of majority rule. You have a free and open and fair election, and the person who wins the election gains the office and the power. But the minorities, those who lose elections, or minorities in other ways, also have rights that cannot be trampled by the majority, not even the largest majority. For example, every American has a right to practice religion as he or she sees fit, or to have no religion at all. Even if Congress voted unanimously and the President signed into law a bill to prevent you from practicing your religion, it would be unconstitutional and invalid. The right of individuals to full freedom is guaranteed in our Constitution. But figuring out how an individual can exercise his or her rights without interfering with the rights of others is an ongoing and difficult challenge. For example, you can't drive a car unless you get a license. And when you get a license and drive, you have to stop at red lights, you have to stop at stop signs, you have to observe the lines in the road. These are all restraints on freedom, but they enable us to live in a civilized, democratic society. Reconciling those two principles, individual liberty and the collective best interests of all citizens, is a never-ending struggle in any democratic society, including our own. Currently, we're engaged in a huge national debate over gun control. The law says, the Constitution says that, as interpreted by the Supreme Court, that each individual has the right to bear arms. But in the interest of collective security, our law prohibits people from purchasing certain arms. You can't buy a tank. You can't buy a piece of artillery to fire shells on people. You can't buy an automatic machine gun. Where the line is, how you classify weapons as those which ought to be prohibited and those which the individual right to bear arms permits them to exercise, is a constant struggle given new technology, the new development of weapons, and of course the massive adverse effect on shootings that we've seen recently in our society. Among the principles in our society which have been so valuable in enabling the United States to grow is the principle of opportunity for every member of our society. The United States was the first country to be a true meritocracy. where people rose not based on status or wealth or some other classification, but on their own talents, their own energy, their own values. We have to make that a reality for all Americans. We know right now it's an aspiration, not a reality. Not every American has the same chance as I had or as most Americans have. And we have to be able to draw on the talents of all. Because genius knows no border. Genius knows no language, no ethnic group, no religion. It can be found wherever there are human beings. And our challenge as a society is to find that spark in every single member of our society, the spark of genius that can enable each person to rise to the fullest extent of their talent and their willingness to work. It's an aspiration. We must make it a reality. That's the challenge for all Americans, and especially for you young Americans who have yet to reach the full expression of your talent, of your initiative, achieving your great goals in life, becoming an American, the greatest privilege of all.